What is up everybody, I'm hoping you're all well, and yes, 2017 has come and gone. I've already looked back over the best movies I thought of the year, but now it's time to look at those real stinkers, the ones that pissed me off, or annoyed me, or genuinely made me feel brain dead when I watched them, or just bored and made me want to fall asleep. That's right, it's time for my top 10 worst movies of 2017. First off, I'm going to kick it off with some honourable mentions. Those dishonourable mentions include Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, Stratton, Transformers The Last Night. The reason that's not on the list because it's guilty pleasure as hell and I love seeing giant robots beating the shit out of each other. Underworld Blood Wars and The Limehouse Golem. The reason The Limehouse Golem isn't on my top 10 worst list, as a lot of people probably were thinking, is because I went back and rewatched the movie because my frustration did genuinely get the better of me in that review. I still stand by what I said in that review after rewatching it. It is still a poorly crafted script with a lot of overacting here and there. Bill Nye was the only really saving grace of that film. The directing, fine. The gore was gore. I mean, I've seen gore before in other movies, so it didn't really impress me. And the twist still was as obvious as the first time I watched it, even though one of the commenters mentioned a theory that was going around that it's not actually this and it is actually this. After rewatching it, I have to say that I didn't really personally see it. If you did, that is great, but for me, I still didn't like the movie. But my frustration did get the better of me. There are some moments in the film which aren't as bad as I would originally thought. Like I said, Bill Nye was great. The directing was fine. I would say the costume design was really good for this film. But other than that, The Limehouse Golem was not a good movie. But it missed out on my top 10 worst list, which means there are more movies that came out which I hated even more than this movie. So let's get into it. In at number 10 is SMURFS The Lost Village. Granted, this was better than the other two movies that we'd got beforehand, and the decision to keep it animated definitely helped this film. And the reason this isn't higher up on the list is because it did hit the demographic it was going for. It is a kids film, it was aimed towards kids, but for me, I found it pretty boring. I didn't find the humour entertaining in any way, and I'm hoping this is now the last SMURFS movie we get because I don't think I could sit through another one of these bore fests. In at number 9 is GEOSTORM. Not only was Gerard Butler and Jim Sturgess incredibly miscast in this movie, but the movie took itself far too seriously when it should have been a dumb disaster movie. And going into this film beforehand, I was actually really excited because I like my dumb disaster movies. I really enjoyed 2012. I really enjoyed San Andreas. Are they good movies? Hell no, but they're entertaining as hell because they didn't take themselves seriously. This movie did, and in that it became boring, far too convoluted because it tried to be smarter than it thought it was, and in that I was bored. The only reason that it is not higher on the list is because it still has a bit of guilty pleasure value when they have certain moments happening in the film that I just laughed out loud. But overall, GEOSTORM is dumb, and I do not recommend you guys check it out unless you actually really like your dumb disaster movies, because in that you may enjoy this film. I personally didn't, so it is my number 9 spot. In at number 8 is FLATLINERS. FLATLINERS was a pretty boring film that had quite a bit of potential because the first movie itself wasn't great, so I feel like they could have done a lot more with it to make this movie even better. But it turned out to be basically exactly the same as the first movie, only with different characters, rehashing everything that had gone on beforehand. The scares weren't unique in any way, there was no unique twist, it was boring, it didn't make sense at certain times, so I don't recommend seeing this film. I haven't watched it again since. And at number 7 is CHIPS Law and Disorder, which really disappointed me. I mean, Michael Pena is a great comedic actor. He's proven it in Ant-Man especially, but in this movie, he tries with the material he has, and it fails. Dax Shepard, I know this was a passion project of yours, but it really didn't go as well as you thought it was going to. It wasn't funny in any way. Not only did the two leads have no chemistry whatsoever, the story was a basic storyline we've heard many times before. The acting was fine, I guess, at certain times. For the most part, I was bored. There was no laughs in this movie. I don't think I laughed once. I may have chuckled here and there. I can't really remember. It's a forgettable film. Oh, here it is on my list. In at number 6, Resident Evil, The Final Chapter. Please, God, let this be the final chapter. Now, I enjoyed the first two Resident Evil films, and I think the third one I can find some entertainment with. But as the franchise progressed, the movies just got worse and worse and worse. And the directing just got even more terrible as well, with a lot of the shots just moving and cutting away towards every action sequence that was in the film. It was messy, it was boring, it was unentertaining, unaction-packed, unthrilling, and I genuinely just didn't give a shit about this movie. I could not care about any of the characters. When characters died, I didn't even remember their names. As I said in my review, when certain people die, the characters have a moment where they're like, oh no, we've lost this guy, and you're just like, okay, I don't know who you've lost. I've literally looked at everyone there and I can't see anyone missing. Because that's how forgettable these characters were. But anyway, I'm rambling. That's my number 6. It was boring, unentertaining. There it is. In at number 5 is The Bye-Bye Man. Now, The Bye-Bye Man was absolutely one of the worst horror films of the entire year. However, it became one of the most unintentionally hilarious comedies that I've seen all year. This movie was hilarious, the acting was terrible, the directing was terrible, everything about this movie just screamed shit. And at number 4 is The Snowman, and talk about a thriller that isn't at all thrilling in any way. Not once was I on the edge of my seat, not once did this movie keep me guessing. In fact, I wanted to fall asleep during this movie because it was boring. This movie had so much potential as well, though. It had a great cast, it had a great filmmaker behind it, the cinematography was good as well, but the movie itself just wasn't good, and the more you think about it, the easier it is to just pick apart because it wasn't well crafted in any way. It was one of the most boring movies that I sat down to watch this year, which genuinely annoyed me because there was some great talent behind it. It could have been a great film, one of the best of the year, but it turned out to be this, my number 4 spot. And at number 3, talk about a movie that is called Unforgettable. Completely forgettable. That's unforgettable. There was a lot of forgettables in that sentence. Yes, Unforgettable is my number 3, and we get movies like this every year where a crazy ex is going after her ex-boyfriend or husband or anything like that, and every time they are boring, uninteresting, unthrilling, just generally don't give a shit about the characters, the writing's terrible, the directing's terrible, the acting is usually terrible. The most annoying part is the actors in this movie have proven themselves to be good actors beforehand, so it made this movie material for this film, not made them as bad as they were, but it did have some unintentionally funny moments, which is the reason it is my number 3 and not my number 2 or 1. Which brings me to my number 2. My number 2 is 50 Shades Darker. 50 Shades Darker was a terrible film. I hated every minute of this movie, much like I did the first movie. The main actors have no chemistry together. There are plot lines in this movie that didn't make any sense, including a helicopter scene, and this moment of a girl that kept breaking into a house that seemed like a ghost or a demon of some shit, turning out she was just a psycho. Wasn't needed in the film in any way. It was terribly overacted, the directing was awful, and the writing feels like it was written by a 10-year-old. It was that bad, and you can see the actors' pain through every line delivery that they give. And now for my number 1 spot. Could it be anything else? I mean, really, this movie just made everyone watching it feel dumb. Not saying that anyone who watches this movie is dumb or anyone who likes this movie is dumb. I'm saying that the filmmakers thought the audience was so dumb that they'd think they'd like this sort of humour, that it was there purely to sell certain brands. And the reason this movie doesn't get a pass like I thought it was going to, because it may have hit the demographic that it was aiming for, is because I don't feel like it should be hitting that demographic because it's not sending a good message to those kids. That movie is the Emoji Movie. It is a terrible film. I generally felt like my brain cells were dying watching this movie. I will never watch this movie again. I hate it. It needs to just die and never exist anymore. So those are my worst movies of 2017, and we got some real stinkers this year, but we did get some fantastic films as well. Now it's time for the 2018 film season to start, and look forward to my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2018 list coming to you guys really soon. But for now, the worst movies of the year. Do you guys agree with this list? Are there other movies that you think should be on the list and some movies that you think shouldn't be? What are your top 10 worst movies of the year? Whatever you are, let me know in the comment section below, and as always, thanks as always for watching, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you want to see more videos just like this one, then subscribe to my channel for more. Thanks again for watching. You guys are awesome, and I will see you all in the next video.